Hi, everybody. Welcome to Module 2 of the DREAM program. In Module 1, we introduced the importance of reading with your children and how dialogic reading is a beneficial way to do so. We also covered peer, a way to cultivate engagement and create a back-and-forth conversation with your child rather than just simply reading the text of a book with them. Today, I am going to introduce you to a new mnemonic, crowd. Understanding crowd will allow us to ask our children different types of questions that accomplish different goals and get them to answer and engage in different ways. Let's get started. However, before we get into crowd, let's briefly refresh our memory of peer because today's content is really only useful if we are using peer successfully. Every time we want to kind of create conversation and engagement, we can prompt the child to participate by asking questions. That is the first P. And then the first E is to evaluate the child's answer. Make sure you tell them if that response was right or wrong, and then you can expand on what the child says. That is the second E. Add a little more information, a little more language, and then after that, we can repeat the prompt again to give the child another chance to recite the response. And again, the overall goal of the peer sequence is to maximize engagement and interaction while reading with your child. Now, today's lesson is going to talk about different ways to complete the first step of peer, different ways to prompt a child. To do that, we will use the mnemonic crowd. Crowd will help us remember the different types of prompts we can use to get your child engaged. In crowd, C stands for completion questions. R stands for recall questions. O stands for open-ended questions. U stands for WH questions. And D stands for distancing questions. Over the course of this module and Module 3, we will talk about each of these crowd prompts, what they are, how to use them, and how they elicit different types of answers from your child. One helpful way to think about and organize these different crowd prompts is in levels. Each level can be used to accomplish a different purpose when reading with your child and can be matched to their needs and abilities. Level 1 prompts include completion questions and simple WH questions and are best for introducing new vocabulary and getting a child familiar with an unfamiliar topic. Level 2 prompts include open-ended questions and complex WH questions and are best for getting the child talking more about the words and pictures in the book and using the vocabulary they already know in different ways. Finally, Level 3 prompts include distancing and recall questions and are best for targeting more advanced concepts like story comprehension and identifying specific text features. So, in summary, just know that different crowd prompts can be used for different purposes, and depending on your child's current skills, abilities, and familiarity with the topic in the book, some questions might be more appropriate for your child than others. Now let's talk about the Level 1 prompts. In Level 1, the focus is teaching children new words and getting children to talk while you read with them. Your child may not be accustomed to speaking up at all while you read, so some simple questions about vocabulary might help them get talking a little. To accomplish this, it's important to know that you do not have to ask questions only about the words in the book. You can also talk about the pictures. This is especially useful to give children a visual representation of a word in the text. So when looking at a picture, you can label the objects and the actions represented in the picture. For example, if you're looking at a picture of a park, you can talk about the trees and you can talk about the playground. You might also talk about how a child is climbing on the playground. There are many different objects and actions that you can work on adding to their vocabulary, or at least helping them be more aware of certain words. For example, if they are unfamiliar with the word horse, you can target the word horse. Then, if they are familiar with the word horse, you can talk about slightly more complicated vocabulary related to that horse, such as it being calm or it trotting. The possibilities are endless. So, now that we have talked about Level 1 prompts broadly, let's talk about the two specific Level 1 crowd prompts. The first is C or completion prompts. In a completion prompt, we leave a blank at the end of a sentence and get a child to fill in that blank. It is best used when you think your child knows the word, object, or action you are referring to, or when you are reading a book with rhymes or repetitive phrases. Now, let's talk through some examples of completion prompts. If you are reading a story about a dog and the dog has been named, you could say, "The dog's name was blank." And just stop talking and let your child fill in or complete your sentence. And once they do so, you can continue the peer sequence. Another good way to use a completion prompt is in a rhyming book. For example, if you are reading and saying the following line, "I think I'd be a glossy cat," a little plump but not too blank. The rhyme provides a hint at what that word might be, and hopefully they would respond with the word fat. The second level 1 prompt is simple WH questions. These are the most common prompts and are probably the easiest for adults to ask children while reading. They are the what, who, and where questions that have a clear, specific, correct answer. These questions are good for targeting vocabulary and story details your child may or may not know. You can start by asking these what, who, and where questions related to pictures in the books, and then continue to ask slightly more difficult questions as you reread the same story or books on similar topics. Now, let's go through some examples of simple WH questions. You can ask things like, "What's the name of this?" while pointing to a picture. Or while looking at a picture of a horse on a farm, you could ask, "What does this animal eat?" These questions target specific vocabulary or things about the story that you want them to talk about. So both completion and WH questions are good level 1 prompts for working on new vocabulary and getting children engaged. We will get into level 2 and level 3 prompts in module 3. Finally, we will review some key topics related to dialogic reading broadly. First, it is important to remember that it is good to read the same book or books on the same topic because you can really focus on learning similar vocabulary, and you are able to ask more complex questions as the child gets more comfortable and familiar with the book and its vocabulary. Also, do not forget that these crowd prompts are just different ways to start the peer sequence, so do not forget to follow the prompt with an evaluation of the child's response, an expansion of the child's response, and repeating the prompt again. And above all, keep the environment fun and engaging to make sure that your child will still want to read with you again in the future. Thank you for your time.